What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I am wrestling with myself. Yesterday was a pretty dark day in the WWE annals of time. One of the darkest days in history in terms of guys losing their jobs. The news broke just yesterday morning that a bunch of guys were going to be laid off because the company has been suffering a lot of financial losses. They're running empty buildings. They're not getting ticket sales. Vince just lost a bunch of money in the XFL. WrestleMania lost up to $25 million because they couldn't be in front of a live crowd and all the things that come along with that. So they laid off a ton of people yesterday. I think it was the highest number of cuts on one day in company history. First things first, on this channel, I'm not going to chastise either side right now. I'm not going to use this channel to hang the company. I'm not going to put my beliefs into this video in terms of whether it was right or wrong to lay these guys off and what kind of financial statements WWE has in their bank accounts. I don't know the inner workings of their finances. There's been some reports that they're suffering right now. There's been other reports saying they didn't need to make these cuts and this is a drop in the bucket and these guys shouldn't have been cut. So I'm not going to analyze in a situation that I don't know. I don't have the inner workings of their finances. I don't know how they're managing money. So I'm not going to use this to jump on them. Obviously, the most important thing here is the health and well-being of these guys that were cut. A bunch of guys were laid off in a time that a pandemic is going around. So not only are they not making other forms of income, but they're not going to be as quick to be signed by another company because other companies are shut down right now. The indies are non-existent. AEW is taping months in advance. They're out of Raw and SmackDown now, and most other companies aren't really running anymore. Ring of Honor, MLW are all temporarily shut down. NWA is temporarily shut down. New Japan's not running much, if at all. So these guys don't have a place to go right away to make money in a time when the world is in a scary place. So I'm sending thoughts and prayers out to all the people on this list. I'm just going to read off the list of guys and tell you, I guess, where I think they'll go at the end of this thing. Just kind of make some conjecture on where I think they could wind up at the end of this. Kind of their contributions to the main roster and my surprise at the fact that these certain people were cut. So I'm going to go over the list with you guys and just sort of see how things end up. But first and foremost, I want to start and end this video by saying that if you're sad about these cuts, if you care about these guys, if you can financially afford it for yourself right now, please go to their pro wrestling tee shops, go to their Patreons, go to their GoFundMes or whatever other things they have going on, and send them money and follow their careers and buy their merchandise and support them. If you can afford it and you love these people, continue to follow them on their journeys wherever they go next and show them love and support. Man, I gotta say, Braun Strowman's comments a few weeks ago about people asking for handouts and they shouldn't be doing Patreons and shouldn't be doing GoFundMes. That looks very, very senseless and stupid right now. It was dumb at the time that he said it, saying that wrestlers were looking for handouts when Evil Uno just simply tweeted, please support indie wrestling. Strowman looked like a jackass back then, but he looks like a bigger jackass right now by saying these things, and now his company is laying off dozens of friends of his. So very senseless thing by Braun Strowman. But let me get to this list. It's a pretty long list, so I'm not going to take too much time on it. But I did want to touch on it because it is one of the biggest noteworthy things to come out of wrestling in a long time, sadly. First things first, a lot of guys were furloughed. A lot of the agents, both from NXT and from the main rosters, were furloughed, so they were laid off. They are no longer working, and they are without pay currently, but they have jobs to potentially come back to later. They weren't entirely released from their contract, so they're still under contract. They're just not currently working and not currently getting paid. So it doesn't make it much better, but at least they could have a job to go back to once this thing is over. And I suspect certain people on this list will go back as well. Some of those guys were Kurt Angle, Sean Daivari, Shane Helms, Lance Storm, a bunch of guys like that. Also, Performance Center wise, Ace Steel was furloughed or let go. I'm not sure which. Sarah Stock, Sarah Amato. A bunch of trainers all around, bunch of agents were let go or furloughed, and hopefully they can all find jobs right away once this thing ends. Now as far as the full official roster cuts, we got a bunch here. The Good Brothers, Anderson and Gallows. Very surprised to see them on this list. They were the most active on-screen characters on this entire list. They just were involved in the WrestleMania main event with AJ on night one with Taker. They've been very involved with this OC Club gimmick for the last several months. Surprised to see them go. They just signed a new contract last year for a 5-year deal, so to see them let go was very surprising. So obviously I think they're going to wind up doing pretty well for themselves. AEW's tag division is pretty full already. AEW is a place you would think of because they're friends with these guys and they're very good wrestlers. But AEW's tag division is full. I mean, between the Young Bucks and the Lucha Bros and Private Party and Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy and the Dark Order and the Butcher and the Blade and Best Friends and SCU. There's so many tag teams already there. The Revival's rumored to be going there soon because the Revival was just let go recently. So they're going to have 9 or 10 tag teams, plus the champions Omega and Page. There's really no room for another tag team. Even with the Revival, this tag team division is too full. So you got to think the best spot for the Good Brothers would be back to New Japan. They were heavily involved in New Japan, getting paid good money there, very famous there, made a big name for themselves there, and I think they're a pretty good fit for Japan's tag division. So I could see those two guys going back to Japan. Rusev, it is Rusev Day, and a sad Rusev Day it is. As far as we know right now, as of the recording of this video, Lana is still employed. So the couple was broken up right now as far as one being employed and one being fired. But Rusev was one of those guys that I believe asked for his release. I am happy for those guys because if someone asked for their release and wanted to go and do better things for themselves, I'm glad they got this chance because otherwise they wouldn't have been let go. Vince has been hoarding talent and not letting guys go because he doesn't want them to go anywhere else and make money and be part of a competitor. So for the guys that were stuck in their contracts and couldn't get out, this was the way for them to get out. So I'm happy for the guys that actually wanted to go. Sad to see anybody else cut that didn't want to be cut, but glad to see Rusev go because he wanted to go. This guy is amazing. Ever since the burial by John Cena ending the undefeated streak at WrestleMania, he's been held down. He's made the best of everything he's done, whether it was the foreign heel gimmick, whether it was the Rusev Day comedy stuff, whether it was even the bad storyline with Lana and Ziggler. He made the best of it. He's got personality. He's got a good look. He's very agile for a good size. He's got all the tools to be a big-time guy. I've heard a lot of New Japan rumblings. I think he could fit there, but I think he'd be a really good guy for AEW. I think he could really make some noise in AEW. He's one of the most complete guys on this list. Speaking of underused complete guys on this list, EC3, the most misused and mishandled guy on this list. Was Derek Bateman back in the old NXT days, was around for a while, got fired, went to Impact and made a huge name for himself as EC3, came back to NXT, had a good little short run in NXT. Ever since going to the main roster, he did nothing for himself, was never involved. After about 2 or 3 weeks, he was buried instantly, never made any kind of dent in the company. He's got a great look, a great body. He's physically solid in the ring. He's a great character. He's a great mic worker. He's got so many tools to be a star, and he's going to be a star somewhere, and I'm wondering where that's going to be. Just because right away AEW comes to mind, obviously, it's the next biggest company, but AEW already has a better version of EC3, in my opinion, in MJF. Maxwell Jacob Friedman plays a similar look and similar character to EC3, so I don't know if EC3 fits with already having an MJF there. I guess they could do a storyline, but I don't see him fitting in AEW with already having a similar look and character in the company. So does he go back to Impact? Is that too small for him? You know, where does he go? I could see him being in Ring of Honor. If Ring of Honor can afford to pay pretty well, I could see him doing that. I think he'd be a natural top heel in NWA. I would love to see that. So are there big enough pawns for him in the U.S.? I don't see him going to New Japan. So if AEW and New Japan are out, that would leave, maybe he goes to MLW or Ring of Honor or NWA, and he could be the top heel on any of those brands because he's got everything. I could see him fitting in with the Dynasty very nicely in MJF's old spot in MLW. Lio Rush, another guy who never really reached his full potential in WWE. He's had some backstage issues with running his mouth and stuff on Twitter. He's gotten in trouble a couple times for saying things he shouldn't say, but in spite of being very small, he's got a lot to him. He's probably the quickest and fastest wrestler on the entire roster, or was on the entire roster. He's incredibly agile. He's so quick. He uses his speed and his size to his advantage. He's an underrated talker. We learned about him with the Lashley stuff. He can actually talk. He was doing the heel cruiserweight gimmick with the 21-year-old piece of gold or whatever it was. He's an underrated talker. He's got charisma and character to match his high-flying, agile ability. He's quick and he's a personality. I like this guy a lot. I think he fits very well in AEW. I think a heel gimmick with him against a guy like Jungle Boy or Darby Allin could make a lot of money. I think AEW should look at him. Him and Rusev right away jump out as being AEW fit signings. So I hope that he goes there. If not, he already did pretty well in a short run in Ring of Honor, so I could see him going to Ring of Honor and being a big deal again there. So one of those two companies, I think. Now we get into some of the, I guess, next tier names that weren't getting used as much. Ryder and Hawkins. Surprised to see a couple of veterans go. There are 3 veterans on this list that were there for a long, long time that I didn't think would ever be cut because they're just so respected in the locker room and such good hands and have been there for so long. That is Zack Ryder, Kurt Hawkins, and Heath Slater. Those 3 guys have been there like 12, 13, 14 years apiece. Again, Zack Ryder was an underrated guy for a long time. The crowds took to him. He got really, really over doing the Long Island IZ stuff, doing the YouTube show and all that. Did get pushed for a while in a storyline with Kane and John Cena and kind of got buried. Came back and won the mid-card titles at WrestleMania and I think one other time too. And it was always a start and stop push with him. His acting isn't great. His facials and his mic skills are not that great. He kind of sounds canned when he talks. But he's a very solid wrestler. He's got a good look, and he's got a big fan following. He's got a nice name to him. So I don't know if we would see Zack Ryder in AEW or something like that. I don't know if the fan following would be enough. He's got a good fan base, but I don't know if he has at this point in his career. But I think he's got enough of a following that he could go do podcasting and YouTube and stuff like that, maybe even training, and he could be something special in that realm. So I don't know if he's going to be an active wrestler for much longer, but I can see him doing a lot of wrestling-related stuff, like podcasting and training. Heath Slater, same thing. He's a really good bumper. He made the most of his opportunities with the He's Got Kids stuff. He did some good stuff in 3-Man Band comedically. He did some good stuff in the tag title run with Rhino, which was his last big push. He's a good bumper. He's a good hand. But just doesn't stand out as a great anything. He's not a great talker or a great wrestler, but he's just solid at everything. But he's a company guy and he does what he's asked. And so, again, he's another guy. Maybe he could be an agent for WWE when they let guys back in, or AEW. I don't know if he's going to be an active wrestler somewhere, but he definitely could be an agent or could be a trainer because he has the tools. I just don't know if it's enough to continue on with a major company right now. But surprised that he's gone because he was a loyal guy for a long time and did a lot with very little. Mike and Maria Kanellis, this is a big one. He's another guy, Mike Kanellis, who asked for his release, really wanted out for a long time, and then re-signed for a 5-year deal, even though he wanted out. And then right away after re-signing for the 5-year deal, he asked to be released again. He wanted out again, so he re-signed for the money and then realized that they weren't going to push him at all. He was very misused. He was a standout in Ring of Honor. Another guy, great talker, good heel character, good body, good wrestler, good pacing, solid fundamentals. Maria's a great manager, good looking, good talker, intelligent. They have a nice act together. They did really good work in Ring of Honor. Got signed, went to the main roster, pretty much did nothing. Had the good theme song and the good the In Love characters for a couple of weeks and then weren't around again. Mike Bennett's had his problems. I think it was either alcohol or drugs. He had his problems, and then they came back, and then Maria got pregnant. They went away again. Then they came back and were involved in a bad storyline where Maria was just abusing Mike, and he looked like he was buried. So they never really got used to their potential. I think Ring of Honor is a good spot for them. AEW is getting kind of full, especially if these guys that I'm talking about sign. I think Mike and Maria going back to ROH or even Impact, where they also were at one time, they were a good act in both those companies. And again, a good worker with a realistic look and a good body and a good talker, most importantly, I think could really fit in Impact or especially in ROH. So I could see them going back to ROH and being stars there. The Colognes, Primo and Epico, they've been around for a long time. I didn't realize they were still around. They weren't featured much in the last 5 or 6 years, but solid wrestlers, just always saddled with bad gimmicks. Not a lot of charisma and not very good gimmicks, so they kind of got buried. Not sure if they'll really go anywhere. I could see AAA somewhere in Mexico. They fit that style of wrestling and they're solid hands. Deonna Purrazzo, she was an NXT name that was released. I like her a lot. I think she's a good AEW fit. Or she could go back to Ring of Honor. Both of those companies need help in the women's divisions right now. Ring of Honor's rebuilding theirs, and AEW still needs help in theirs. I would love to see her go to AEW, but I could see her going back to Ring of Honor. She's an underrated talent. Good look, good agility, good mat wrestling as well. She's got a mat wrestling ability that few females that I've seen right now in any of the main companies have. So Purrazzo is a very good talent for a women's division here. So I could see her in Ring of Honor, but I'm pushing for her to go to AEW because they could use the help. Sarah Logan as well, another very good women's wrestler. Her husband is still with War Raiders. He's still employed right now as of this video. Never really got pushed very hard. She was in the final two of the Women's Rumble last year, but never really got a push. Her group broke up a year or so ago and was never reformed. Solid talent, but just never given much to do. Again, MLW was trying to start a women's division. I think NWA would be a good fit for her. I look at NWA or Ring of Honor, and I see somebody who could really fit there. So both those divisions could use help, and I think that she's a good fit there. Mike Chioda, a longtime referee who's been around for like 15, 16, 20 years, but probably longer than 20 years actually. Man, he was around in the 90s. A very loyal, very solid referee. One of the faces of the referee part of that company. Sad to see him go. Hopefully he gets signed on by AEW or some big company that he can still apply his craft for. He's very talented at what he does, and it was sad to see him go. Drake Maverick, an underrated talent on this list. He's another one of these guys, kind of like Heath Slater, where he's a loyal company guy. He does whatever he's asked. He can do some serious wrestling. He's an undersized guy, but he's a good wrestler. He has a good character. He can play an underrated face with some passion, as he did in 205 Live in the storyline with Mike Bennett. Also, very, very funny guy. Did some funny things in Impact. Did some good stuff with EC3. Made the AOP and 24/7 stuff the best that he could. He's an underrated guy overall. He's got a character. He can do funny. He can do serious. I'd like to see him sign on with somebody. I don't know if AEW is the fit for him. Maybe Ring of Honor. He can bring some new talents in there and work with them as a manager / wrestler and do some part-time stuff. I could see Ring of Honor being a good fit. Maybe even kind of being a comedy guy for NWA, where he gets beat up and takes a beating, but he still finds himself in a couple serious storylines. Eric Young, another veteran on this list who never got a chance. Really, really good in Impact. Was a lifelong company guy in Impact. Another guy like a Slater who's a great bumper, solid character, can do some comedy, can do some serious, but was never seen as a top-tier player, never could really escape that mid-card level. Came in with Sanity, good gimmick, looked like he was going to break through. Sanity was buried from day one there. They debuted in the main roster. They were only seen like 5 times in their entire run in the main roster. Never really won a match. Might have won one match in their entire main roster careers. So Eric Young was very misused. Killian Dane was more misused. But Eric Young is a guy I can see, whether it's WWE later on again, AEW, whatever, I can see him being an agent or a trainer. He's got good fundamentals. He understands the business. He's a good talker. He's, again, can do comedy, can do serious. He's diverse, and I don't know how much longer he has in the ring as a wrestler, and I don't know if he's going to benefit any of these companies as a wrestler because the mid-card ceiling is kind of where he is. But as a trainer, as a podcaster, as an agent, as an undercard talent, he can do a lot with a little. So I think an MLW or an NWA might be a good fit for a guy that's as loyal and as dedicated as Eric Young is. Eric Rowan, another interesting one. A guy that I always saw improve and evolve throughout his career. He started off very green when he was part of the Wyatt family with Harper and Wyatt, who both were just so good. But Rowan is a guy that always added to his offensive arsenal. He's very intelligent. He would always add small little things to his character. I like how hard Rowan works, and I like where he is now compared to where he started. But after the Wyatt family broke up, he just got saddled with a lot of injuries. His partner, Harper, was always injured as well. And then he had that stupid what's in the box gimmick for like 3 months where something was in this box. And then one week it was revealed to be like an animatronic fake spider, which was stepped on by Aleister Black, and then it was just buried. So they killed him dead for the last year. But Rowan's got a lot of talent. He's got size, he's intelligent, and he works hard, and he's decent offensively. He's better in the ring than people give him credit for being. So I think he winds up being somewhere. MLW, as a singles run, I think as like the intelligent giant, kind of the Lars Sullivan gimmick, where he's big and strong and scary, but also intelligent and can be cerebral and psychological, I think would fit for him. I think an NWA where size matters, or an MLW where he could get a singles run with some name recognition, I think could really rebuild him and make him one of the unsung stars on this list. I don't know if he can ever be a main event top level guy, but I think a solid mid card to upper card giant with cerebral abilities could be a good gimmick for him. No Way Jose was released. He was just a comedy guy doing the Adam Rose thing that would get over on house shows and never really wrestle on the main roster. Sad to see him lose his job, though. And Aiden English, who was a solid wrestler when they did the tag team gimmick, but he's been just doing commentary now on 205 Live. I don't know if he wants to continue to wrestle, but at the height of his popularity was with the Rusev Day stuff when he was singing and doing stuff with Rusev Day. I could see those guys being a pairing again if Rusev gets signed somewhere. I could see Aiden English being a trainer. I could see him being a manager or even a commentator on one of these shows. I think MLW could benefit from Aiden English's commentary. Also, Simon Gotch is in MLW, so if they want to reunite him and Simon Gotch, or Simon Grimm now, in MLW, that could be a thing. So those are your cuts. Those are my rundowns of how these guys were used on the main roster, how their careers went, where they could wind up next, and how sad I am to see all of them go. So again, if you like these guys, go to Pro Wrestling Tees, go to their Etsy's, go to their individual stores, support them, follow them in the next step of their careers. I will come back with another video if there's another round of cuts today. If more guys get released, I'll come back and do a video for that. Who on this list do you want to see go where? Who should go to AEW? Who should go to Japan? Who should go to the Indies? Who would come back to the main roster? And who are you most sad to see go here? Who do you want to see thrive somewhere else as personal favorites of yours? I hope all these guys thrive, and I hope you're thriving too. I'll see you guys soon.